Well, there's a bunch of infighting going on at the motor company. And what does that mean for you, the rider? We'll talk about all that and more. Let's go. Well, with the 2025 riding season well underway, I am happy to announce a brand new sponsorship for Burroughs Point viewers that's designed to help you. I've partnered with BOHN Body Armor in order to provide a great discount for Burroughs Point viewers. BOHN offers all kinds of different riding apparel, safety gear. They have riding pants under the pants, riding pants, things of that nature in order to keep you safe. So you can wear what you normally wear and have it be stylish and protective at the same time. Go check them out at bohnarmor.com. That's BOHN armor.com, and use promo code BACalvin at checkout in order to get $10 off of your order of $100 or more. I've got a pair of their riding pants. It goes under my jeans. They're really thin. They provide protection in the places where it need to be protected. Again, use promo code checkout BACalvin for $10 off your order of $100 or more. With that, let's get to the video. So I've stepped away for a couple weeks, and nothing really was an issue. It was more along the lines of, I don't do YouTube full time, and in my day job, this is the time of year, the springtime is about the time of year when I have some major projects come due, and really I become a hermit and all of my time and effort goes into my day job. But holy crap, over the last couple weeks while I was stepped away from the YouTube channel, did a whole bunch of stuff happen with the motor company. So you've got all kinds of shareholder revolt right now, and that's being led by this investment group called H Partners. Now, just so you're aware, H Partners, while they do own about a 9 to 10% market share of Harley-Davidson, they are not like the largest shareholder over there at Harley-Davidson by far. They're a major shareholder, but not the major shareholder. Of course, you also have to keep in mind that over there at Harley-Davidson, the BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, large investment companies, they own large chunks of Harley-Davidson as well. So H Partners is also an investment group. Don't get me wrong. I've seen a lot of other folks talk about H Partners and have talked about them in certain ways, but let's be real about them too. H Partners is also a group of investors. They don't have any kind of special connection to the company outside of that. However, what has really taken a lot of the news headlines is that H Partners is leading a shareholder revolt, essentially, to oust Johann Zeitz, who's the current CEO, as well as 2 other board members, to oust them from the board, basically finger pointing at them and saying that, hey, y'all are the reason why Harley-Davidson is in the straits that it is. And sure, with Harley-Davidson being in the situation that it's in, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, and there's going to be a lot of people blaming each other and saying, hey, this is your fault. But it's really easy when you're the CEO and you're the one who led Harley-Davidson down this road to get the finger pointed at you. So is some of this deserved? Surely on Zeitz's part, yeah, you know, you want to point the finger at him and say, yeah, you're one of the biggest reasons why, because you unveiled this plan. These other 2 shareholders, I'm not exactly sure what their involvement was, but H Partners has targeted them and has tied them into this scheme. But it's crazy right now. I mean, if you haven't gone to take a look at the H Partners open letter to the world over at freetheeagle.com, I would highly recommend y'all do so. It's some very interesting reading and gives you some insights as to what's going on from the perspective of the shareholder. And I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but let me just hit some highlights here. So as we said, Johann Zeitz is the main one that they're pointing at on the chopping block, but you also have presiding director Thomas Linebarger and 29-year director Sarah Levinson. And those make sense because those would be persons who, if they were backing all this nonsense that was going on, they probably need to go. So going over to the open letter, Sarah Levinson is a long-tenured director on the board, having served for 29 years. Again, Line Barger is the presiding director, so he's got a lot of involvement in the direction that the motor company went. And then Johann Zeitz. H Partners has a current 9.1% ownership stake in the company. Over the last 5 years, we've had the opportunity to immerse ourselves within the Harley-Davidson community alongside the company's shareholders, employees, riders, and dealers. Harley-Davidson is a rare and iconic company whose legacy remains deeply embedded in the broader fabric of American culture. Over the last year, it's become increasingly apparent to us that the company is in need of urgent change for several reasons, including major execution issues that have been overseen by Zeitz, an absentee CEO, a management team that continues to blame external factors for their mistakes, and have failed to hold the CEO accountable for an approximate $2 billion value destruction and cultural depletion of the iconic American company. So these guys are not pulling punches here at all. They are telling it like it is, because this is not a fabrication. I mean, there's been real damage done to the Harley-Davidson brand. Through our representative who served on the board from 2022 until earlier this month, we had a front row seat to the serious issues that we describe in this letter. However, we are not the only stakeholder who has observed the company's decline under CEO Johann Zeitz. Dealer sentiment is near a decade-long low, and in late summer 2024, a large association of dealers wrote a letter calling for Zeitz's removal. An out-of-touch CEO has failed to execute his own strategy and has already announced his intention to retire, should not be making crucial decisions that could affect long-term prospects of the business. Further, we believe that the current board, which is tightly controlled by 3 entrenched board members, cannot be trusted to oversee crucial decisions, including CEO succession. As a result, we are soliciting shareholders to join us in the voting withhold on the election of the following 3 incumbent directors, upcoming 2025 annual meeting of the shareholders. And the reasons why they cite for this is poor performance, weak execution, and flawed corporate governance. Now, for those of y'all who are not aware of how this works, voting withhold essentially would force, it's essentially a vote of no confidence in these board members, and will force them to remove themselves from the board, to tender their resignations from the board. So essentially what H Partners is asking you to do is to oust these board members. But who gets to vote? Again, that's a very important point. Customers don't get to vote. Even the dealerships, if they're not shareholders, you don't get to vote. The only people or only entities that get to vote in this entire process are the shareholders. So unless you're someone who owns Harley-Davidson stock and you have enough stock for a voting share, or you have enough voting, you have a voting share essentially, unless you have that, you don't get a say in this at all. So really what H Partners is doing is they're trying to rally the shareholders that they can rally in order to withhold, aka get rid of, these 3 board members for whom they are blaming for all these issues. And there's quite a few issues for them to lay on the laps of these 3 board members. So obviously Harley-Davidson under the tenure of Zeitz has dramatically underperformed in the stock market. You can take a look at their open letter and it lists all the figures. But I think something that's a little bit more telling is that point number 2 in their letter is that we believe that weak execution is to blame for the failure of the Hardwire strategic plan. So this is where I take a little heartburn, because I think that Hardwire was a bad plan from the start. I've done a video about this. We've already talked about this subject, but Hardwire to me was a non-starter from the start. When you start getting away from building bikes to the masses and worried about profit per bike, essentially, that's where you start screwing up. But let's look at their graph here that they're talking about how Mr. Zeitz's strategic plan has failed, on at least execution thereof. Under desirability, they say that the company tried to help reduce dealer inventory to support used bike sales. That apparently did not happen. Profit focus, invested $300 million in a new touring, cruiser, and trike products to grow these categories. Total touring, cruiser, and trike shipments have declined 20%. Also, I guess something to talk about in that category is they actually discontinued a couple of models. So they may have invested the money into the new Milwaukee 8 engine, but they've also gotten rid of a couple of their profit centers as well by killing off these bike lines. Selective expansion and redefinition, launch entry-level adventure touring motorcycles to build momentum in these categories. Well, they failed to do that. You've got the Pan American, and that's it. And they came out with a CVO Pan American. Okay. But there's nothing else other than the Pan American. Growth beyond bikes, grow parts and accessories and apparel revenues. Made 2 key leadership hires to develop and launch 3 new apparel collections. And apparel, parts, accessories, and apparel revenues have declined during Mr. Zeitz's tenure. So, yeah, I don't know that the writers really care about that much. That's definitely a shareholder concern. I will agree. But as far as people deciding to buy Harley-Davidson, I'm not sure that really, the writer base really cares about that. Lead in electric. Grow electric motorcycle division Livewire to nearly $400 million in revenue by 2024. And Livewire is failing. Here's where I take issue with Livewire, or Hardwire rather. Livewire sucks. Nobody wants these bikes. Literally nobody wants these bikes. The Harley-Davidson base does not want these bikes. And to say that this was a failure of leadership in execution, nobody wants these bikes. Harley Corporate, nobody wants these bikes. H Partners, nobody wants these bikes. Not in the Harley-Davidson fan base. Not for the customers that you have. So I'm not sure, this is where I take great issue with this, is that the shareholders, we'll get into the bulk of that in a minute, but the riders need to be wary of the shareholders and not completely say that this is going to be the end-all be-all savior for Harley-Davidson. Integrated customer experience, launching a plan to invest $2 billion to renovate Harley-Davidson dealerships, create new incentive structures to improve profitability of the dealer network. The vast majority of dealers have not participated in a renovation program, and more than half of dealers lost money in 2024. So the dealers, that's a whole nother bag of chips. We'll get into that in just a minute. Inclusive stakeholder management, sought to deliver positive outcomes for all stakeholders. All stakeholders have been harmed except for Mr. Zeitz. All the financial targets for Hardwire have failed. On the next page of the letter, you can see them detailed there. And then here's the next page of the letter is each of Harley-Davidson's stakeholder groups have suffered under Zeitz's leadership. So, and they list here employees. Sure, I guess employees are having real problems. Dealership network, like I said, we'll get into that in just a minute. The customers, decline in bike values, elimination of entry-level products, depleted brand identity. I'm not sure that's all of what he's done, but sure, I'll take these 3 points. And then shareholders, equity value destruction, underperformance. Poor corporate governance, they go into tenure. Yeah. So here's a good point that they make in these last couple of letters. Apparently is taking personal liberties with the unilateral authority to delay CEO search. And in that, where Zeitz is an outgoing CEO, he is making decisions that continue to harm the company. And if he's going to transition into the executive chairman position, that's just ensuring that he stays there in the company and continues his reign of destruction. And so here is, that's insidious, right? When the announcement was made that, he's going to retire, I guess this is a point where that really wasn't shared publicly. When I did the video on this before, I knew that he was going to get his golden parachute and ride it out. So I guess that was the one thing that I did not report on because I really didn't know anything about it. I knew that that Zeitz was on his way out from the company and was going to get a good golden parachute to kind of ride his tenure out as CEO. But I didn't know this more insidious thing where he was going to move to the executive chairman of the board. That would entrench him forever and to solidify this really not great plan of his. And I don't think the shareholders, this is why the shareholders are revolting, I guess, is that if he is allowed to do that, and if he stays as well as these other folks that have kind of helped him out along the way or are known issues on the board, then you get more of this, and that is not going to work for the investors. All in all, I think it's a sound strategy by the investment folks, the shareholders rather, in order to try to move the company forward from their perspective. Now, an equal voice, which is just as important, I think, are the dealerships, and they have responded. They have also penned an open letter to the world, to the shareholders, trying to express their frustration. On a website called dealersforchange.com, these dealers have kind of gotten together and have written, and I'm not sure what dealerships that they're exactly representing. They claim to be a dealership group that is representing dealers across the country for Harley-Davidson. They've done a YouTube video that I haven't had a chance to watch yet. I guess there's a Reddit discussion, and their open letter reads as follows. We write you today from a place of deep regret and unwavering loyalty that's been built over decades of shared victories, setbacks, and dreams. Our dealership network is not just a business, it's a way of life for millions around the world. And for those of us who are privileged to be part of this community, it's an extension of our very identity. Today, however, many of us in the dealer family are struggling. We share these thoughts not to assign blame, but to offer a sincere plea for change. Change that can restore the full strength of our brand we all love so dearly. Across the network, dealers have invested heart and soul into building our company's presence, buying and maintaining real estate, operations, hosting community events, fundraising for local causes, and above all, evangelizing our brand. Yet, recent years have been difficult. Dealer profitability has declined, overstocked inventory has weighed them down, the loss of entry-level products has hurt dealer traffic, store renovation requirements are financially difficult, dealer trust has been strained, brand culture is fading. We believe the challenges that we face are not due to a lack of effort by management, but rather the need for a renewed vision. We humbly and respectfully ask for a renewed commitment to listening to dealer input, restoring sustainable inventory practices, reintroducing a true entry-level product that invites the next generation into the brand family, making store upgrades more achievable and financially practical, rebuilding the emotional and cultural connection between headquarters, dealers, and riders. So this is a pretty poignant letter, and it's a very interesting point that this makes. The dealers here are facing a brunt of this as well. So a lot of folks like to point fingers at Harley-Davidson dealers, and they don't really understand how dealerships are aligned or set up when compared to the motor company itself. So the dealerships are often independently owned businesses who have licenses to sell Harley-Davidson motorcycles. That's really the end story. There's no special incentive, there's no company ownership unless, and I'm not really aware of any company-owned store. The dealerships are, I guess, the buffer that the company sends their motorcycles to, and there's a whole pricing structure with how motorcycle sales works, and things like inventory and things like that. But all that aside, at the very base of it, the dealership is a separate business entity. So if you have a problem with your local dealership, most likely your problem is not also with Harley Corporate. You had a problem with that particular dealership. And that's been discussed a lot in the comments on some of the other videos. So I want to make that distinction clear. But that letter is not necessarily wrong. In a lot of ways, the dealers are taking the brunt of these terrible business decisions by Harley-Davidson. if you are pushing live wire electric motorcycles to the dealerships and saying, here, sell these, and they're not sellable, then what are you doing? In some of their business decisions, Harley-Davidson has taken away the entry-level motorcycles. So they've taken away a lot of the foot traffic, the beginner foot traffic that might be coming through the door. That's not great for the dealerships. Also, the dealerships do have a lot of skin in the game. They have the inventory. They have got to pay keeping costs on the inventory. They've got to pay for the real estate, the floor space, all the physical presence. They're the ones who maintain and do a lot of the advertising, maintain the physical presence and do a lot of advertising for Harley Corporate. So that's not to be overstated. The other interesting point here is that unless there's a major ownership group out there, or unless that an individual dealership is part of a shareholder group or is a minority shareholder, the dealers don't get a say in what corporate does. They just kind of have to live with what Harley Corporate does. Now, they could, a dealership does have a choice to stay with Harley Corporate or to flip and say, oh, we're going to go to Indian, oh, we're going to do this, oh, we're going to do that. Certainly they're in their right to do so. But in order to stay the course, to continue on the brand that they've built as a Harley-Davidson dealership, they're kind of stuck too, and they don't really have a lot of recourse to get back at Harley Corporate. So I think this is what they're doing to try to bring awareness to their plight as much as anyone can be. I can see the comments now, but as much as anyone can be sympathetic to the plight of the dealerships. Okay, I get it. You call them stealerships. I get it. But I'm saying, you have to look at it from their perspective as well. They're getting screwed up by this stupid business strategy as well as the customers. So, they're bearing the brunt of this too. So they deserve, and I guess they deserve a better way forward as well with the business. And that leads us back to the final point, the rider. There have been a lot of folks making videos, talking about this subject, and have had a lot of opinions on this. This is a situation where you are an ant and you are watching a fist fight if you are a Harley-Davidson owner. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of going back and forth, but really it doesn't involve you, and it may be happening around you, it may be happening right in front of you, but it's not happening to you, and the only thing you can do is hope that while these two people are fist fighting, they don't step on your anthill and destroy your anthill. So I guess I say all that, it's a bad analogy, but there's a lot that's going on right now, and the average Harley-Davidson owner can't do a lot about it. And it's incredibly frustrating when the shareholders are looking out for themselves. Obviously, the shareholders are looking out for themselves. You can't ignore that. If H Partners' position is as they describe in the letter, they don't have a problem with the hardwire plan. They just have a problem with the way it was executed. Well, hardwire plan transitions to electric. It increases profit margin per bike. It does all these things. That business strategy aims for all these things. It doesn't really help the end situation for the end Harley-Davidson user. So looking at that from the shareholder perspective, if they think the hardwire was just simply flawed in execution, that doesn't necessarily mean good things for the Harley-Davidson rider, is what I'm trying to say. Now, if you're talking about getting rid of the current CEO, Zeitz, and these other two board members who are complicit in the establishment of the hardwire plan, then I think adopting the mantra of the enemy of my enemy is my friend might work here, because at this point in time, with Harley posting the losses that they are, anything's got to be better than this, right? Because Harley cannot keep on this same trajectory. It will fail. So that something's got to change, and the shareholders don't want that either. So if it continues on the current path, it will fail. At least you know that the shareholders are profit motivated in order to keep Harley-Davidson afloat. Now, what does that mean for the end user? Not really sure, but at least the motor company, there's a profit motivation there to keep the company door open. Same for the dealers. The dealers are kind of sidelined on this as well. They are, again, kind of riding this boat with the riders, waiting to see what Harley Corporate does as well. The cleanest way forward, the cleanest, most bloodless way forward that it appears right now to benefit all parties involved, the shareholders, the riders, the dealerships, is this H Partners initiative. Depending on how this shakes out, there may be positive change in the company, there may not be positive change in the company. But I say all this to say that although the H Partners plan seems to be the best way forward, really there is not a lot for dealerships or riders to be able to do. There's nothing else for riders and dealerships to do other than to reach out to some of the other shareholders on Harley-Davidson and help to sway their votes to a withhold vote to force the retirement of these three. Because at this point in time, this seems like a practical way forward to affect change at the company that's non-destructive, that doesn't hurt the company, helps to get the company back on the proper footing. So anyhow, what do y'all think about all this stuff that's going on? Do you think that the H Partners plan is sound? Do you know a way forward there? Do you think that the dealerships, other than trying to support the H Partners shareholders that are voting withhold, is there anything else that dealerships or riders can do to voice their opinions? Leave a comment below. What do you think about all this situation? Do you have an opinion about Harley-Davidson? Leave a comment below. I'd love to discuss this further. Well, let's talk about it. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video.